Good. So we are excited to talk to you guys today about what is going on in our market mayhem in May. Is anybody seeing some kind of weird slowdown that might be happening? We're going to get to that. But first we want to talk about pricing. How are we pricing the houses in this market? Are you pricing it at value, at what you're seeing comps come in at? Or are you pricing a little bit above, a little bit below? Kind of what's your strategy? So Jess, do you want to start? What are you doing when you're pricing your listings up there in Castle Rock?
So for the most part, when we sign a listing agreement, I'm leaving the pricing as TBD because pricing, as we all know, it is changing daily. So what we talk about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago may not be what we decide to price at. So that's the first thing I'm telling my sellers. And the reality of it is, as much as we want to list for higher, sometimes the market has shifted just enough that we're not going to list for, as high as we thought we were. So I'm a person who prices aggressively anyways. And so I give everybody a range of kind of where we're at. And I always tend to price, especially if the house is staged, clean, and it looks really good. I always think pricing on the higher side of aggressive is better. I am not a believer that 20 to 30 offers is the greatest thing in the world. I'm a firm believer that 2 to 3 really solid offers is really great. I'm also a believer that you get a better buyer when we're in a not massive multiple offer situation. And I also think that my sellers aren't leaving money on the table. We dictate what the price is. We're not letting the market tell us. And so I would rather be in control of the pricing than allowing the market to do it for me. So the first thing I do, I check comps the day before we go on the market. And if there's anything under contract in that neighborhood, I call the agent and I have a conversation because as we all know, what it's under contract, what it's on the market for listed at is not likely what it's under contract for. Right. So based on those conversations is obviously where I decide to price the house. And that's usually, at this point it can be, because I price aggressively, that's usually 5,000 to 10,000, maybe over what I was originally planning on pricing at anyways. It's not massively different than what my opinion was at the initial conversation with the sellers.
So when you're having that conversation with the other agents that you're calling, when you're asking about the comps, I know that I've run into a couple of agents that are pretty leery about giving up that information, and I don't really understand why. What kind of questions are you asking them, and how are you getting the answers that you really need out of them?
So here in Colorado, and I just want to address this specifically because I've seen this come up multiple times in real estate groups around the country. Here in Colorado, our contract specifically asks the seller at the time of our listing agreement if we can share information regarding their offer. I personally have never had a seller give me any sort of pushback on that. In a quickly appreciating market like we're in right now, it is a service to your fellow agent, in my opinion, to share information. If we were in a different market, maybe it's not as big of a deal, but right now, y'all don't have nuclear codes. So let's stop acting like we have nuclear codes. You can absolutely, as long as your sellers have given permission for you to do so, you can absolutely share terms of the contract with another agent, with an appraiser, with Joe Blow walking by on the street, as long as your seller has given you consent. I always go over with my sellers why it's important for us to give consent. One, it bodes a better offer for you prior to accepting an offer because I can tell them, hey, we're at $100,000 over list price. Beat it or it's not worth your time, right?
Yeah.
And the other reason it's important is like I just said, you should want to help your fellow real estate agent. We are co-op agents and we should always be cooperating with one another.
I totally agree. And that really helps too when you know that you've got a comp coming up in your listing that might be higher than what they've sold theirs for. It might be helpful for them to know that you're going to be listing at X. And then once you go under contract that you're going to share that information with them. That would be a huge help for them when they have an appraisal, Kristen, what are you doing as far as pricing goes? Anything different than Jess?
So I'm kind of doing a little bit different than Jess. I don't put the TBD, which I kind of like that. I kind of want to do that now. We're coming up with the price because when I go on the listing appointment, it's about a week to 2 weeks before it actually goes live with photos and preparing it and everything. So I tell them, this is what I think it's worth right now. But come time when we go to actually go live, another property may have sold. So I want to pull comps to see. And I am kind of doing the whole, it's kind of funny, like back in the day, we would list properties by just solds. You really can't comp properties off of just solds anymore. You literally have to call the under contracts and be like, look, I'm getting ready to list this property. I notice you're in the same area. Can you give me some details on what you're under contract for? That way it's helping us list. But I'm doing it the day before we go live. I'm looking to see if any of those have actually sold, or if there's any more that came up, or any, even the assessors. The assessors sometimes will change as well too. So that needs to be looked at as well. But I'm basically doing what Jess is doing, but I'm not doing the TBD, which is kind of smart. Like I should probably do that.
Yeah, I mean, because you're gonna have to do another piece of paperwork anyway.
Right, exactly.
So you might as well do it TBD.
Exactly.
Something that we do in our office, because we have, a bunch of realtors here in office, anytime I'm pricing a property, I always ask each of them to pull some comps and let me know what they think the house is worth and what they think it'll go for after we stage it, just so we can get a couple of different opinions. And I always tend to err on the higher side, just like Jess does. But it's interesting to see that. And then we also have like a kind of mini contest to see like what everybody thinks is going to actually sell for after the fact. So I don't think pricing it under market is a good idea right now, because you're just going to be inundated with a ton of offers, and you're going to attract buyers that are going to get their hopes up for a property that they can't buy because they're going to be priced out of the market. So as a buyer's agent, that's not a super fun thing to do. We're showing people a house at 400 when we know it should be listed at 450, but it's on the market, and so our buyers are going to want to see it. So in order to compete on that house, we might still be having to offer 460 to 480, and our clients just can't do it. So that's not cool either. So make sure we're pricing them the right way and aggressively if we need to, but still within the parameters of where we think things are going to appraise for. So I see Byron has a question. So Byron, I was at Slim Chickens yesterday. That's a big surprise. Byron says he has a handful of employees who are looking to transition out of the rental market into first-time home buyers. With current market conditions, is it wise to transition into the buyer's market without the appreciated value selling a home on the front end? So I've got a couple of different opinions on that. I run a lot of rental homes pages here in Colorado Springs. My personal opinion is it's always better to pay your own mortgage than somebody else's. Kristen might have a different opinion because she has a whole property management division. So Kristen, why don't you handle that question and give a couple of different opinions on what people might be seeing, because I think that that's a super awesome question to have. And it's still hard to compete in our market for first-time home buyers if they don't have enough money saved up for appraisal gap.
Correct.
Do you want to handle that?
I mean, obviously, I'm having the conversation with our tenants because we've had a lot of tenants reach out in the last 6 months that they're sick of renting. They want to purchase, but they're hearing that the market is just crazy for first-time home buyers, and they're just wondering if they have a chance to even purchase their own home. And the first thing I state to them is, as long as you're not picky and you just want to get into that house and start paying your own mortgage, then yes, this might be for you. 2, how much money do you have saved? Yes, I understand you're a first-time home buyer. Yes, that your first down payment's going to be taken care of, but that doesn't matter in this market right now. Do you have money saved? Appraisal, inspection, appraisal gap, and even some down payment. Do you have some money for down payment or even closing costs? And if they answer yes to both of those questions, then I invite them into the office and we have a detailed conversation from there. If they don't have any money saved and they don't want to settle on any house in any area, then I say, you know what, maybe this market isn't for you. I'll love to stay in contact with you and we can go from there. We've had a couple of those turn into buyers, but for the most part, those people are staying in their rentals because they don't have money saved and they don't have money for an appraisal gap. And I am still keeping them up on the market. I do put them on searches too, to be like, hey, like just to kind of give you an idea, this is what the market's doing. I'm going to keep you on this to let you know what it's going to do in the next 6 months. If I ever see a slowdown or if I ever see those appraisal gaps starting to dwindle away, you're going to be my first call. And then I do tell them, if I do see those appraisal gaps dwindling and you are my first call, I want to know that you have some money saved. And if you've got money saved and those appraisal gaps are going away, we may have a fighting chance. Let's figure this out. So It's a 50-50 shot. I make sure I interview the buyer at first to see what they're comfortable with. And if they answer yes to either of those questions, then we go forward and we go from there. So
So I handle it differently.
So I'm sure that Jess does things a little bit differently. So I'd love to hear what she does. I don't work with a ton of buyers, but I do have agents that do. So we'll listen to Jess first, and then I have kind of a side note for Byron and business owners that might want to help their employees compete in this crazy market.
So my first question is, are you willing to not get the dream home? I mean, in the words of our friend Simone, you're not getting the house with granite. You're not getting the house that's move-in ready, bougie, MTV crib shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
But are you willing to buy something that you can live in for the next 3 to 5 years, appreciate in value, we sell it in 3 to 5 years, and there's your nest egg? You have to start somewhere. Ain't nobody getting the dream the first time out of the gate, period, end of discussion. So you need to step into, as a first-time home buyer, number one, you need to be unemotional, especially in this market. Number two, you have to be willing to make concessions, period. If you want a single family house, your ass might be in a townhouse right now. And that's okay. Like, we're not buying the forever home. We're buying the stepping stone home. So that's the very first conversation that I have with them. If they out of the gate tell me I'm not willing to do that, then we're done. Like, let me refer you to someone else who wants to go run you all over town, because my goal is to get you into a home. Yeah. Then we obviously go through financials and we go through what is expected up front. If those things are all good, let's go look for a house. I just got a buyer under contract on a off-market property that we found. They just got their appraisal back. Their appraisal was $30,000 over what we're under contract for. That's amazing. That never happens in this market. And we pulled an off-market deal. My other client, I just got him under contract for only $5,000 over list price, no appraisal gap, and we didn't waive inspections. There are still deals to be had out there. And if you have a smart, savvy agent, like, we will find them. But you also have to be a smart, savvy buyer who's willing to listen to the direction of your agent, not your dad, not your homie who bought a house a year ago. Like, you listen to your agent who is working in this market every day with buyers and sellers. If you're not willing to do those things, you are not ready to buy a house right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. So Byron happens to own a couple of our favorite restaurants, Slim Chickens, and he has a lot of awesome employees. And he wants to find out if it's a good option for them to be buying right now, because a lot of them are renting. I think it's really hard to find and keep good employees right now at pretty much any business across the board. So what I would do if I was in one of those positions and I have some really awesome employees, maybe some manager level employees that are kicking butt, and I want to give them an incentive, maybe I would do an employer match up to $5,000 for an appraisal gap to help them get into a home. Some kind of incentive that says that you want to keep them around and keep your awesome employee, but you also want to help them invest in their future. It doesn't have to be, a grant. It doesn't have to be a gift. It could be something that they pay back. But some kind of interest in your own people is going to be huge. And I'm surprised we haven't seen more of it. But I think that as business owners, that might be a really good way to keep those employees that you really want to keep. Just to show a little bit of appreciation. So I don't know if you thought of that, Byron, but maybe some kind of a program like that, even if it's $5,000, that would be a huge help to get people out of the rental market and into the buyer's market. So maybe some food for thought on that. Anybody else have anything that they want to share on the buyer side that we haven't touched on yet? No? Okay. So can we talk about the market the way it is right now? Is anybody in any of your markets seeing any kind of a slowdown or a shift of any kind in the market?
Yep.
Jeff, what are you guys seeing up there in Castle Rock?
We statistically, and everybody thinks I'm insane when I say this, our market slows down every year in May, without a doubt. And I had a seller go live May 1st, so Saturday, May 1st, and it was a price point that had we listed 2 weeks before, we would have had, 80 showings. We only had 20. Like, that's wild, right? Like, and it was literally May 1st. The most of our appreciation here in the Denver market is from January to April. And then May hits, we're getting out of school. We've got Mother's Day, we've got graduations, we've got all these different things going on. And our summer here is so short. Like we go back to school August 5th in Castle Rock. People are done. Like they want to be settled. They want their kids settled. So this is the time of year where we do start to see a little bit of a leveling off. And you know, it's all relative, right? Like we're going from 20 offers to 3 offers. Like it's all relative to what's been going on. But still, there was a very real slowdown. I mean, this past weekend, I was able to schedule like normal showings, guys, like 5 back-to-backs under 500,000. Like, what the hell? That hasn't happened since, you know, November. So it was a very tangible slowdown. I pulled statistics and we were down almost 37% showing wise.
That's crazy. So Kristen's about 45 minutes to an hour south of me in Colorado Springs, and Jess and Lindsay are about 45 minutes north of me in Castle Rock and Parker. So I think that in Colorado Springs, our market is a little bit different than Denver. We're usually several months behind them here. But May is when our PCS season starts, and we're a heavily VA and military-driven housing market down here in Colorado Springs. So we're just starting to see a crazy big pickup. Again, like I didn't think it was going to get any worse, but it seems like it's getting a little bit worse. But you always are seeing like those 2 to 3 really, really good offers that separate themselves anytime you're listing a house. So it would be nice to just have those 2 to 3 instead of having, you know, 12 to 25 of them that just can't compete, but are throwing a number to the wall and hoping that it sticks. So I had one last week that was priced right at 400, probably priced a little over where I should have priced it. And we had, you know, 8 offers up to 70,000 over asking still. But we don't have, those offers weren't coming in with a huge appraisal gap, which normally they would. So that I have seen a little bit different. Normally we would see a bigger appraisal gap. What are you guys seeing in your markets as far as investors coming in with cash and trying to buy up whatever they can? What are your thoughts on that? Because we have a lot of different forums going on down here in Colorado Springs, because there's a couple of investors in particular that are trying to buy up a whole bunch and kind of control our market. So what are your thoughts on that, Kristen? You guys seeing that down there in Pueblo?
So we're not, I know in Colorado Springs it's crazy right now, and I have some questions for you on that. But down here in Pueblo, we're not seeing it in the high end. We're not even seeing it in the median price point. We're seeing it a lot in the lower price point. Obviously, the lower income areas, we're seeing it a lot. But I'm curious on what's happening in your area, because I'm seeing online a lot of these big companies coming in and purchasing these properties. And what price point are they in? Are they in all price points?
Every price point. What it looks like, the main players are not really the home partners type investors. It's really like the more independent investors from California that are 1031 exchanging millions and millions and millions of dollars all at once. And so they're willing to overpay for it. But they want a huge market share of our houses, which sometimes it's a great opportunity for our sellers. But if all things are equal and you've got a buyer that's trying to buy to owner occupy, and then you've got an investor that's trying to invest to take over market share, as an agent, how are we supposed to ethically let them know what their opportunities are? So my client this past weekend, instead of taking an offer from a local investor here who was going to buy it and then rent it to one of his clients because they weren't ready to buy yet, they took an offer from a buyer that's going to be owner occupying it because they are in that same position in another state now trying to buy a house. So I feel like real estate karma is a real thing, and you know, they're trying to get what they can as far as the karma gods go. And so we do have a ton of investors with cash coming into our marketplace. And there's a lot of discussion on, do we sell to them, right? I think that that's the challenge is, as an agent, you have to do what's best for your client. And if your client's the seller and the best offer is an all cash offer, you know, 30 grand over asking price, and it happens to be from an investor, can you really tell them that's not the best thing for them? Right. That's where I struggle. I mean, if all things are equal and, you know, you've got a buyer with the same amount that's going to owner occupy, I feel like, yeah, I mean, it's up to them what they choose, but we have a lot of people that are trying to push those particular investors out of our market. And I don't know what the right answer is there, but it's a real thing that's happening. The reason why they're doing that is because they're afraid that if they buy up too many houses, then they control the market. They could shift our market just by, sheer numbers of volume. They could change the rental market and jack prices up if they're the only ones with houses. They can change the seller's market. They can do a lot of things just with all that leverage that they would have. So they're going in and trying to take over certain marketplaces. It's not necessarily just Colorado Springs. You'll probably see it in Pueblo too. And Jess and Lindsay up in the Denver metro area are probably seeing it, but there's so many houses, it's hard to, make a dent in that kind of thing. But down here, when you've got, 500 active listings and those guys are the people offering on 200 of them, that's a big market share shift. So we're definitely having those conversations in our local forum, and there's people on both sides of the coin, and I personally am right in the middle. I don't really know. Obviously it's not the best thing for our market, but is it the best thing for our client? So, that's always the stressor for me. Sometimes it's the best thing for the client, so we got to go with that. Ultimately our clients don't care who they sell to, but our job is to educate them on what's going on in the market. And then they make the decision after that. Are you seeing that at all up there, Jess?
I mean, we get a few here and there, sight unseen, but like my sellers have either said, I don't want to know anything about the buyer. I just want the numbers. Or like the off market one we got, they were pissed that their neighbors sold their house and it was a rental situation, and they turned around and rented it for $2,900 or whatever it was. And they did not want their house going to somebody who was going to rent it out. So they decided to sell off market to a family. So yeah, I mean, I think it's gotten so expensive up here. I don't know how much sense it makes from an ROI perspective and cap rates and all that stuff. So I think that's it's dwindling. I don't want to say it's gone away, but it's definitely dwindled.
Yeah. Kristen, do you guys see it at all down there?
We're not seeing the mass companies come or big investors come. At least I haven't seen it yet. I'm seeing Denver investors coming down here. But we've been seeing that for the last couple of years because, like Jessica said, they're getting priced out of the market up there, and the ROI just doesn't make sense. So they're coming down here. I haven't seen any mass companies or big timers coming and doing mass offers. I haven't seen that yet. No.
Something else that I am seeing, I'm having a lot of investors or representatives for investors sliding into my DMs on Facebook. And asking me if they can buy my properties off market, excuse me, before they hit the market for X amount of dollars, and it's usually under asking price. Mm-hmm. And they're saying that they're gonna flip the house, but they want them to own or carry it while these guys flip it, and they're not even trying to give them any of the profit. Are you guys seeing more of that kind of creeping in again?
I am, yes. I've actually had a couple of Denver investors do that, where they've gone in and got a property for super, super cheap as an owner carry and then turns around and flips it. Mm-hmm. I've seen a couple of that happen, and I'm even getting phone calls and text messages too on some of my properties that I own, and they're not knowing who I am. So of course I have that conversation with them. But yeah, I am seeing a little bit of that.
So how is this impacting pricing, as far as like how we're pricing homes and how we're advising our sellers to price?
I mean, I'm always telling them when I have the pricing conversation, like, hey, we're probably going to get some cash investors that are going to offer on your property. When they do that, they may or may not be then renegotiating the contract at inspection, because they're not expecting the house to be perfect, but they are going to be asking for some things that normally, in our market, the buyers wouldn't be asking for. So I'm still pricing probably, when I look at other people's comps in the neighborhood, and I only go back 90 days, I'm typically pricing $10,000 to $20,000 higher than they were listed at, just because I'm assuming that they're going to be under contract over asking. And with what I know that I do to my houses and my properties, all my listings are going to look a little bit better than theirs. I think that I have a good case with the appraiser to, get the house appraised close to contract price. It never appraises for at contract, for me anyway. They're usually a little bit under, but because of the appraisal gap that people are making up, my sellers are pretty happy. I'm still staging houses. I stage them every single time. And I believe that adds at least $10,000 to $15,000 of value to what you're going to get offer wise, because it's going to create more competition. But what are you doing up there when it comes to investors? Do you think that has any impact on how you're pricing, Jess?
I mean, if it's a closed comp, it would, but I don't think so.
Right.
Yeah, I don't look at cash as heavily. I don't give it as much weight as a financed comp. Because I'm going to call the agent that was under contract or closed that cash buyer, and I'm going to say, hey, it was 90 days ago when you closed that. What would you be listing it or selling it for today? And they usually give me an idea of what that would be, and I use that in my report with the appraiser as well. What are you guys gonna do this summer? Like when the kids are out of school, do you think that that's going to change the amount of people out looking at houses because people are going to be on vacation? Some people are going to be back at home keeping track of the kids and homework, or not homework, but where they're at. Or do you think that it's going to be, business as usual? My concern that I have is because the kids are going to be out of school, I feel like parents are going to be back home more. And so I don't know that having open houses or showing starting on a Friday or Saturday is the best thing for my sellers now. I might just start showing during the middle of the week instead of waiting. What do you guys think about that?
I think the inherent problem is that we as agents have been trained now that this is the process, because I listed on a Tuesday, we had literally no showings until Friday, just like we always would have. So I think inherently the problem is that the agent population has trained themselves, and I'm going to say themselves, which in turn has trained their buyers that this is the process. Which we can go into that in a second, because I want to touch on that too, like the way that we're negotiating and stuff. But I don't think it's going to change anything listing earlier. I think if anything, you're going to end up losing out on more buyers, because buyers aren't going to be as willing to wait for their offer to be accepted or rejected or whatever, or you're going to have more of a situation where I think it's probably the same everywhere. We have agents writing offers on multiple houses right now. And so you get one, they terminate, they pull their offer on this one. So I think inevitably, unfortunately, because we've been training ourselves that this is how the market is, I think unfortunately it ends up hurting the seller if we try to change anything. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I find that we get the best offers possible if we have a little bit of time to market it before we start showing it. Mm-hmm. So I've had a house that's coming soon. We can have coming soons in Colorado Springs for 14 days before we have to make it active. So I've had it coming soon for quite a while, and I have had a rash of agents asking me to show them early. Weird. Which apparently some of our agents don't know here in town that that's a big no-no. But we've also had a whole bunch of people sending offers way early before it even hits the market, sight unseen. There's only one picture of the outside. They have no idea what the inside looks like. So of course, when my sellers see this, crazy high offer, because I'm presenting it, they're like, we should take it. It's like 50 grand over, what we wanted to get for our house. I'm like, that's the problem. The second they go inside and see that your house isn't done yet, they're going to pull their offer, and you're going to have wasted a whole other week. So doing it the right way and waiting that time and advertising the house properly really is going to still get your seller the best possible return on their investment. And that's our job, is to get them top dollar for the house, right? And make it as easy as possible. Kristen, how about you? What are you seeing down there?
This last week we saw a little bit of a dip, but I think once here in the next couple weeks, it's going to start getting more busy. But what I have noticed is if we do, like Jessica says, list on a Tuesday or Wednesday, even with no instruction, I am seeing that showings don't even start up until late Thursday, Friday, Saturday-ish. So it's almost like it's a whole circle effect, and it's not hitting all the buyers until Friday is what it looks like to me. Mm-hmm. So I think you're right. Holding off, listing it on a Tuesday or Wednesday, and holding off until Sunday or Monday for offers to get every single buyer in there has worked. although we did see a little bit of a dip this past week. But again, I think it's just because it's May, there's school, there's graduation, there's different stuff happening right now. So.
Yeah, people are, every weekend, they're at a graduation party, it seems like. So I think that's changing how many buyers are out there actively looking at houses. So that might also be the reason why you guys have seen a little bit of a dip up there.
I also think it's just straight up buyer fatigue. Like, I think buyers are sick of shit of looking at houses. They aren't, I mean, like, I called my client who's been looking for a house for 8 months. He was with a different realtor first and came to me, and now we're under contract. But 8 months of looking for a house, like, he wasn't even excited when I called him. I was like expecting a friggin' parade. I barely got a yay. Right? So I think buyer fatigue is playing a huge role in what's going on too.
Yeah, I totally agree. So with that being said, I know that when we get a buyer under contract, I feel like we feel like a superhero at some point, right? And we want our buyers to experience that, but they're so let down by the whole experience. How are we making that up to them? Like, how are we changing the way that we work with our buyers, start to finish, so that we can still give them as best of an experience as we possibly can? And then can you two both talk about, if you give closing gifts, what you give? Because I've been hearing conflicting things on that lately too. So Josh, you want to go first?
Like, from a buyer experience perspective, I mean, nothing's really changed for me. Like, that, you know, I always send them something like a congratulations, we're under contract. You know, I still have my same system that I've always had. And then as far as like closing gifts go, it's personalized for every buyer. Like, I've done, you know, my big thing, everyone kind of knows me for my baskets that I've always made, and it's individualized for each family, each couple, each single person, whatever.
So you're not just getting a generic gift card to someplace and
I never do
gift cards across the table?
I've never done a gift card. Like, I always just want them to have something special to move into their new home. You know, it's a housewarming gift. It's not a closing gift. It's a housewarming gift. Like, these people become your friends. At least that's the goal. And like, you want their move in to their, I mean, we've even gone as far as sometimes one couple didn't have a Christmas tree and we closed at Christmas. My ass brought a Christmas tree and decorated it to their house for their housewarming gift. Like,
absolutely.
They're your friends. And if you're looking at it as a closing gift, I think you're looking at it wrong. It's a housewarming gift. Like, it's something to end the process with them and make them excited about moving into their new home.
I think that people forget that they are trusting us when they've seen how crazy the market is. They've gone through it, right? They're trusting us with the biggest purchase of their life. So you have a responsibility to make sure that their experience is a really good one. And if you're just mailing it in and giving them a gift card or giving them, you know, nothing, I mean, I understand that you're not giving your attorney a gift. I mean, I give my attorney gifts, but most people are saying, like, you wouldn't give your doctor a gift, you wouldn't give your attorney a gift. Why would you give your realtor a gift, or why would your realtor give you a gift? You know, I feel like we are here to serve our community, and if one of the ways that we do that is by saying thank you, and we're excited for you to move into your new home, and we want you to have a really good experience with that, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think that the people that do those things and continue to keep track of their clients after closing, those are the people that are going to stay busy, even though the market might dip. Even though we have 5,000 agents in a very small marketplace, where you guys have like 48,000 agents or some crazy shit up there in Denver. You're still going to have to figure out how to separate yourself when the big Zillow word starts infiltrating your market, or Redfins, or whatever those companies might be. You're going to have to figure out a way to stand out, or your business is going to go bye-bye. And so if you're competing for listings later on your buyer that closed 3 years ago, and you're competing for their listing, you didn't do your job. Period. You should have been communicating with them for the last 3 years, telling them, you know, thank you for working with me. I haven't forgot about you. Hey, I saw this and I remembered you. It is not hard, but that is the one thing that I feel like realtors completely miss out on and forget to do, is follow up. And that's something that you guys, we're all trained to do it. For some reason, we just don't do it. I don't know why that is. Kristen, what are you guys doing down there that might help your buyers have a good experience, at least after finally getting under contract?
So I do a closing basket of like snacks and goodies. So my cousin Lacey owns the Appleseed, and she bakes all of her home goods. So she'll do bread and banana bread and cookies and like a little cake and brownies, crackers with her homemade jelly. And we put that in a basket so that when they're moving, they could just grab a cookie and eat it, or grab a slice of bread and eat it, put some jelly on some crackers and eat it. They've got something to snack on while they're moving, because that's the last thing that's on their mind is, what am I going to eat? Another thing that we're going to start doing is Grubhub certificates or gift cards. Start putting those in the baskets so that when they are moving, they could just do a Grubhub and get it to their house right away while they're moving, because that's the last thing that's on their mind. They don't have time to cook. They don't have time to do any of that stuff. So we do a goodie basket. There's been times even at the closing table when I've handed them the basket, like they open it up right there and they start eating it because they haven't eaten from moving. So that's what we do for them. And I think we're going to start doing some Grubhub gift certificates so they could start ordering out and getting food delivered to them.
Awesome. I'm sure we'll talk about this way more in depth in another episode. But I just wanted to make sure that people understand that giving a personalized experience is one of the most important things that you can do as an agent. And setting yourself apart to not just be an agent. That's kind of a huge thing. And that's a big market differentiator for, at least for me. I mean, if I'm not having my clients call me and ask me for help with one thing or another outside of real estate, I haven't done my job. These people should become your friends and your family and your real estate family outside of a transaction, because this is such a huge deal, and trust is a hard thing to earn. And it's an even harder thing to keep. So that's my 2 cents on that. Are you guys seeing any foreclosures going to start to creep in your market? Do you think that's going to make any difference in how we price houses, or how much inventory might be out there?
Nope. I think if it does come through, it's going to be such a small ripple, it won't even be felt. Most banks are adding your forbearance payment onto the life of the loan because they don't want to deal with foreclosures and short sales and all that stuff either. The other thing is, people can genuinely sell right now and make money. Like, why would they foreclose? Like, that's ridiculous. Right. Like, if you go into foreclosure right now, you are a fucking idiot, and that is the truth. Yes. Because you can sell your house and make money.
Yes, absolutely. And that's another thing too. We're getting a lot of calls of, oh, you have a property management company. How many of your tenants haven't paid? Thankfully, all of our tenants have paid, with the exception of maybe 2 because of COVID. But all of our investors are fine. This is what I see happening. Those people who are either in foreclosure or forbearance are going to do a couple of things. They're going to ask their lender to put it on the back of the loan, which most likely that's going to happen. They're going to ask them to forgive it, which I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to forgive it. Or they're going to sell it because they can sell it and walk away with a bunch of money and then go rent. Like, honestly, I think that's just what they're going to do. They're going to put that money in their account and they're going to go rent until they get back up on their feet and then go buy again. That's what's going to happen. So the rental market's just going to be a higher demand, in my opinion. And if it really blows my mind at the realtors out there that are not doing their research on this. You guys, we are 7.5 million homes short right now. 7.5 million. There are about 3.5 million, maybe a little bit less, that are in forbearance right now. Let's just say all those forbearances go into foreclosure. That's not going to do anything. We're still going to be short 3 million homes. I mean, let's be real. Let's be real. Not all of those 3 million houses are going to go into foreclosure. So let's be real, guys. We're 7.5 million houses short. It's not going anywhere. In my opinion, we're not going to crash. And I see all these realtors freaking out saying, oh, we're going to crash. We're going to lose all these houses to foreclosure. Look at the numbers, guys. I mean, I appreciate the realtors that want to be prepared and everything, and they're looking for the future. I think we should be prepared for the worst. Absolutely. But let's look at the numbers and see where we're at before we put hysteria out there. Seriously.
Yeah, I think that's good advice in general. Realtors that want to be the first to report the news is what I call it. It's like they want to be the first to tell you that the market's crashing, the sky is falling, and they're not getting their information from anywhere. You know what I mean? They're like, just because they're the first on the scene doesn't mean that it's accurate information. And just be really careful with what you're putting out there and what you're telling your clients. And what kind of toxicity you're adding into your marketplace, because it's really, you have a huge, you're a huge influence in your community. So if you're putting out really sketchy, weird information, it's gonna make you look really bad, and B, just be careful doing that kind of thing. Wait until you talk to a market expert, maybe a economist, something like that, before you start telling people that the sky is falling because your gas prices went up. The other thing I wanted to talk about, since you brought up forbearance, was the moratorium on evictions. What do we think that's going to do to our market? Kristen, since you do a lot of property management, what do you think about that? And I don't remember what the date was where it's supposed to stop. I think Jess knows, where evictions can start again and people can get kicked out for not paying. But I think that might do a little something to our market, but I don't know what exactly.
So I would like to actually say something. I would like to say that, yes, there was a huge thing on evictions and you can't evict someone because of COVID. That's one. Two, each state and each city are different. Let's be real on that.
Well, the federal moratorium is still in place. So federal trumps kind of everything. And they had overturned it 2 weeks ago. And then the overturn got overturned and they were going to have another hearing. And I think that's either, I don't know. I don't pay enough attention to the rental stuff, honestly.
So let me just say this, because I own and operate a property management company. I will say that my husband, Eric, who is my partner, knows more about this than I do, but being in it every day and seeing what's been happening, we had 2 people claim the whole COVID thing, why they couldn't pay their rent. And I would, number one, if you have a question about evicting them, go to your local lawyer who is a real estate property lawyer and ask them first, because that is the first thing we did. And it was lifted, I want to say 2 months ago, 3 months ago in Pueblo, because we were allowed to evict one of them who stopped paying because of COVID. And when I do this, it's because she was claiming COVID and she couldn't prove it. So we were able to evict her. There's ways around it. Just because someone is claiming that they can't pay their rent because of COVID, they have to prove it. They have to. And if they can't prove that they can't pay their rent because of COVID, you can evict them. But again, everywhere is different. And you need to get advice from your lawyer, period. Don't just go and evict them. Just don't go and have a conversation with them. Go to your lawyer first and then do what your lawyer tells you, because that's the first thing we did. We're all new to this. We had a couple of tenants tell us they couldn't pay because of COVID. We freaked out, went to our lawyer. Our lawyer walked us through everything. So talk to your lawyer.
I agree 100%. I also want to put out there, I always recommend that my clients use a property manager, a professional property manager every single time. Because if you don't do that, you as a regular realtor that does residential real estate, you're not versed in property management. This is not what you specialize in. That's like selling a house outside of your market. You don't really know what's going on that side of things, and you should be really careful with that. Make sure that you're referring people to an expert in that. Because you don't want to give them wrong information. I will say that I've had a couple sellers that have not sold their house because they have tenants in there and they don't want, the tenants are being a little bit difficult with showing the house. And so we're waiting until they move out here in a few weeks to be able to list the house, because that's been an issue. So they didn't want to sell the house before because they were afraid that they would have squatters. They were afraid that they wouldn't leave. So I think that now that we have that, at least that statute that says that now we can evict, that's helping us at least, follow through with that kind of thing and say, hey, you still have to get out. Your lease is up, period. End of story. Yeah, I would absolutely only use a professional property management company. I would not do it yourself if you're just, a residential realtor. There's too much to know, way too much to know. Plus, if you think there's drama on this side of real estate, holy shit. You can never make anyone happy. You're either pissing off the owner of the house or the tenant of the house. You can never be like the hero in any situation on property management, right? Like you never come out of it with everyone winning and everyone loving you for whatever reason. It seems like that's like the most contention in any part of real estate is property management.
Right.
So final question for you guys. This is basically the last week of school. What are you guys doing to prepare market-wise with your listings, knowing that kids are going to be getting out of school, parents are going to be overwhelmed? What are some things that we could maybe be doing with our listings to A, market them the best way possible and get the most people through there and get the best offers, and B, should we maybe change what day we review offers after this week? Because it seems like we're going to have a little bit of extra turmoil this week because a lot of our kids are getting out of school this week. Jess, is there anything that you think that I should do on my couple listings for this weekend, or just business as usual?
I'm not changing anything. One, I have a system, and I think when you start to change systems, anytime the wind blows, that's when we have problems. So my systems stay the same. And the biggest reason I don't look at offers until Monday is because most lenders don't call me back or respond to my emails. So I always wait until I hear from the lender. And if the lender doesn't get back to me by the time we review, then I tell my sellers that, and that's that. But I'm not changing anything.
I saw somebody the other day say that the reason why they review offers on Monday is because they want to have one day off on the weekend, and they do it by choice. So they're training their sellers not to call them on Sunday. They're training the other agents not to call them on Sunday, just so they can have one day off and kind of live their life the way they want and have that one day off. Because
I put in broker remarks, don't call me, don't have your lender call me, send me a text if you have questions, but do not have your lender call me. Like they call and they're like, I'm calling on behalf of Scott and Susan Johnson. And I'm like, who the hell are we talking about?
Yep.
I don't know what we're talking about.
Yep.
So we've all know that I'm a pretty big boundary person. So these are things that I'm really starting to hone in on. Mondays for me, part of it is I like to have Sunday with my family, but really and truly it is also about my seller. It is better for me to talk to the lender than it is to not talk to the lender so that I know what's going on. But it is a little about me too.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Kristen, what are you doing this week that might be different than last week? Anything?
So we're not changing anything up unless it's specific to the seller and the seller absolutely has to change things up. But we're not changing anything else. We list on a Wednesday. We do showings all the way through Sunday evening. Offers are due at a certain time on Sunday evening. And then I like to review the offers and it also gives us listing agents enough time to sit down and go through each offer properly, because then that's what I do on Monday. If I've got 20 offers, I have to take my kid to school on Monday morning or do what I got to do. And then the first thing I'm doing is I'm going through these offers for 3 or 4 hours, putting them in a spreadsheet, calling the lenders, making sure everything's turned in, making sure everything is great for my seller, because then I have to properly talk to my seller on a Monday night and properly present every single offer to them. All these offers that come in and everything, you get all these calls well, how many do you have? What's going on with this offer? And it's I haven't even looked, and I'm probably not going to look until Monday morning, and I'll let you know. And it gives ease on the listing agent to be able to look on it on Monday and properly call everybody and do what you got to do on Monday. So I'm not going to change anything up unless it's specific to my seller.
Are you guys using spreadsheets when you present your offers to the seller?
I am. I have to.
Jess, you don't?
Use a paper calendar. I'm not going to figure out Excel. Are you kidding? I use an old, I have my net sheet and my friggin' highlighter, y'all. That's how we roll around here.
Really?
Oh yeah. I'm my favorite part about reviewing offers is I get to use my highlighter to mark all the areas that everyone was wrong. If I were a teacher, everyone would get an F with my red pen, because that's how I go through offers. I love it, because I'm you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. And my counters are any agent who's done a deal with me, 99% of the time, my counters are a half a page long.
So that's what kind of what I do, but I don't do it with a highlighter. So
How do you know where you're wrong, where they're wrong?
that's very true. So I do all of it in a spreadsheet, all the gist of it, the closing costs, all the goodies, I guess you could say, and I put it across the board. And then I present it to my seller. I send all the offers to them and the Excel spreadsheet. I send it to all of it to them. And then I talk to them. I say, okay, out of all of these offers, what questions do you have? Which ones do you like? Which ones don't you like? And then we go from there. And then we narrow it down to the top 3 or 5. And then I start doing that. Then I go through the offers again and I say, okay, I know this is the offer you like, but here's this, this, and this. Do you want to counter them, or do you want to go back to another offer and see if they have the same thing and go from there? That's when I do that. I mean, I just don't do it with a highlighter.
Nicole Ruman is one of my clients, and she said that if she was an agent, she'd be Jess. Nicole,
today I'm
you
using
would have a nervous breakdown. This is not as easy as we might make it look. And you guys have unfortunately seen some wild and crazy shit. But that's just the tip of the iceberg for what we actually deal with every day.
Right.
I put all of mine in the Breakthrough Broker spreadsheet that I got from that gentleman that was on our podcast. It's awesome. And all my agents are using it too. So it breaks down everything from what their appraisal gap is to it kind of assesses risk. It looks at every kind of loan type that they're using, what the appraisal gap is, how much money down, what the earnest money is, if you've talked to the lender, all of that stuff that you might forget to ask. It asks all of those questions. So it's kind of idiot proof, which is wonderful for me. And it puts it easily for my sellers so they can see, which offer is better. Do you present them in person or do you do it all online, Jess?
It just depends. If they're here in my neighborhood, I probably, if they want me to, go over, because it's fun to drink a glass of wine when we're done, and it's that personal touch, right? But a lot of them, they are sent via email. I send everything PDF, the offer, the net sheet, and then I make the lender respond to me in writing. Lindsay and I have a really long list of obnoxious questions that we ask the lender, and then I attach that so that the seller knows that we got a response from the lender. So it just depends, but I like to do it in person, honestly. I think it's fun.
Yeah. I've been typically doing it on a phone call. I'm always afraid to send the offers themselves to our sellers because I'm afraid they're going to sign them. So
that's why I do PDF. That's why I download them as a PDF, and then that way you have them for the appraisal, right? They're all saved. Even if somebody deletes them, because you can delete them in our contract system, I save it the second it comes over as a PDF because I'll need those offers to help with my appraisal.
Right. I set that expectation at the time of listing. Just like, hey, look, we're going to accept offers at this day, and most likely I'm going to meet with you guys on Monday at this time. Do you guys want to meet in person, or do you guys want to meet over the phone? 9 times out of 10, it's over the phone. But if they're elderly, I have noticed that they want to meet in person. So I leave it up to them.
Love it. Okay. Awesome. Well, hopefully you guys have gotten some insight and some questions answered this week. If you have any other questions on our May Mayhem, please give us a shout out or a message or a Facebook message if it's after the live, and we'll make sure that we answer it next week like we did this week. So again, if we miss something or somebody has a question or think of something this weekend, just send us a quick message on Facebook, a DM or something, and we'll grab it for our next week, okay? But thank you guys all for coming and watching us and taking your time to do that. We appreciate it. We will see you guys next week. Same bat time, same bat place.